Hello, again, I'm Ken Conklin from BATS. A couple points that I'd like to make are, one, typically when you have competition at the service provider level, for example, with DirectEdge and BAT. How's this? Better? Yeah? Okay. Again, I'm Ken Conklin from BATS. When you have competition from the service provider level, like we do in the U.S. and in Europe, BATS is actually at a neutral data center, for example. That neutral data center allows brokers to come in and have much lower fees than, for example, if you're at a captive data center at an incumbent exchange that provides, very high fees just to set servers in there, have connectivity to come in. So one of the areas where I think brokerage costs could come down is having a neutral data center, allowing you to actually set up your systems in that neutral data center, and then possibly even leveraging the services that we and maybe other entrants would bring to the market, which is a smart order router, connectivity to maybe the incumbent exchange or other exchanges that are out there to reduce connectivity costs, and basically where those costs would be borne by the market center that would be setting up and providing competition. So, I kind of go back to one of the points that I made on the panel this morning is it's about choice. And when you have infrastructure providers that come in that gives you a choice, then maybe they can also come in with innovations that can actually drop your cost as well while providing the same services.
Okay, I think it's on. So from DirectEdge's perspective, I take a lot of what I've heard in this panel to heart. I guess a couple of remarks. I think one, it has to do with, to go to Marcelo's point, resolving as much of the uncertainty as far in advance of competition coming to the market as possible. Right? Only with that uncertainty removed can brokers adequately plan and know what they need to do, and more importantly, what they want to do to make lives better for their clients. Which, again, as we said earlier, competition isn't the goal in and of itself. It's meant to help brokers, and that's always what I felt an exchange is supposed to do. Right? Whether you're servicing retail accounts or international institutional accounts or proprietary traders, what an exchange is really meant to do is to help its members, brokers, move their business lives forward, right, and that of their customers, where that's relevant. To John's point, I also agree that it has to go due to flexibility. No gun should be put to your head. On best execution, for example, to Ottavio's point, there's a variety of paths that can be pursued. In Europe, as John mentioned, there is a disclosure-based regimen where if a broker makes a decision that it's not consistent with his business model to be connected to new exchanges, he tells his clients, and then his clients are empowered to make the decision about whether it continues to make sense to use that broker despite that choice. So rather than being rigid about how each broker must respond to these changes, let them make decisions about the costs. Are they consistent with their business model? Is it appropriate for them to make those investments? Will they see a positive return on investment out of them? Right? And, of course, if an exchange grows to be 20, 25, 30, 35% of the market, I think it would be self-evident that almost any broker would feel a need to connect to that market in order to provide a complete service offering, and the clients would demand it. But at early stages, but even then, that would become the choice of the broker. And in early stages, mandating a particular approach would not necessarily be beneficial and would be too rigid. Then it's, again, accepting that exchanges have a role to play in helping to defer those costs, whether through their own services or trying to apply the principle of maximum compatibility. That's why our approach is one where we feel access to CBLC is so important, so that all those concerns about duplicative development and IT and infrastructure work to connect to not only multiple trading platforms but multiple CCPs and CSDs, and how does that interact with Synacor and other middle office systems, gets wiped away completely. Again, that doesn't preclude somebody else from trying to compete on an alternative basis. But for DirectEdge, we view it as part of our responsibility to the brokers to make it as easy as possible for them to use us with the minimum amount of incremental cost or systemic or operational risk or disruption. So that really does inform not just the regulatory principles that we think apply to our project, in Brazil, but the commercial principles as well, because usually, almost always, good regulation is good. I will say always, good regulation is good business, right? And so, while being compatible with third-party systems that reduce the operational disruption and thus the incremental broker cost or investment necessary to adapt to competition, combined with the offering of certain services like smart order routing, to Ken's point, choosing a data center where many of your customers already are, so that you're not paying, not to be too techy, but you're not paying for a circuit, you're paying for a cross-connect, which is you're moving from thousands of dollars to probably hundreds of dollars a month just in doing that, making the right commercial decisions. It will be in the interest of new entrants to make the costs for brokers to use that exchange as low as possible. And so long as the regulators make very clear that there's a framework for competition to come and give the brokers sufficient flexibility within that framework to pick the path of adaptation to competition that's the best for them, we will get the benefits of competition, and each broker will realize that in a way that makes sense for them and for their customers, and costs will not be prohibitive.
Ainda na linha da mesma pergunta, a gente já explicou um projeto nosso para os corretores, né, que é o CST, o Centro de Serviços e Tecnologia. O CST é uma iniciativa da Bolsa justamente para diminuir custo de todo o setor de intermediação. A gente já está trabalhando com um grande parceiro de tecnologia, que é a IBM, nesse projeto. A gente finalizou recentemente o Business Plan. Essencialmente, o que é o CST? É a Bolsa oferecer infraestrutura de data center, infraestrutura básica de rack, de energia, de geradores, hosting de equipamentos e também software as a service, software como serviço, na nuvem. Hoje a gente tem 90 corretoras, cada uma tem que ter o seu pequeno data center, cada uma tem que gerenciar a sua infraestrutura de rede, sua infraestrutura de e-mail corporativo, sua infraestrutura de link, sua infraestrutura de banco de dados, tem que ter equipe de TI. Às vezes a corretora ela pode querer ter um DMA diferenciado, ou para ela talvez não seja importante diferenciar tanto, talvez a estratégia dela seja mais a questão do research. Então ela pode querer ter uma estrutura de DMA compartilhada para reduzir custos. Talvez ela queira ter um home broker também para reduzir custos que possa ser compartilhado. No CST a corretora também vai poder compartilhar sistema de gravação, a gente quer poder apoiar com cadastro eletrônico, a gente quer apoiar no processo de liquidação, o que hoje já é feito parcialmente com o próprio banco BVMF. A gente quer também reduzir custos com segurança de informação e links de rede. O nosso sonho é o corretor poder, se ele quiser abrir uma filial ou se ele quiser abrir um escritório de agente autônomo, ele ter flexibilidade, escala e baixo custo. Ele poder botar um PC, botar um link de rede com login e senha, ele tem todos os serviços, ele pode operar. O mais importante é que para a gente esse vai ser um modelo com margem de lucro zero, porque para a BVMF isso não é um modelo de receita, isso é um modelo de distribuição. O objetivo estratégico aqui é apoiar o distribuidor, é ter capilaridade e reduzir custos para permitir essa capilaridade e, consequentemente, gerar maior volume para o mercado de capitais.